Imagine stepping into, well, a human mosaic, where almost every face seems to tell a different story. That's Nigeria, for you, honestly, one of the most physically diverse countries on the planet. It's just an
Yeah.
incredible spectrum of appearances, all packed into one really vibrant nation. So our mission for this deep dive is to take your sources, especially that really insightful article, What Makes Nigeria's People Look So Different, plus some other research we've gathered, and really unpack the fascinating reasons behind this diversity. We're aiming to pull out the key insights, help you get up to speed quickly on something that often surprises people.
Yeah, and to really get it, you have to appreciate the scale first. We're talking over 250 distinct ethnic groups and more than 200 million people. So this huge variety you see, it's definitely not random. It's this deep legacy built up over centuries, migration, trade, adapting to the environment. We're going to explore how that history is, well, quite literally written on people's bodies. It's like a living testament to human movement, interaction, going back millennia.
A living map. That's a really powerful way to put it. Okay, let's try and visualize this. Picture walking through Nigeria, maybe going from one region to another. Think about the buzzing streets of Lagos in the southwest. And then compare that to, say, Maiduguri way up in the drier north. The people you'd meet would just look so different. They offer these really distinct snapshots. Yeah, our source material paints some vivid pictures, doesn't it? You might see a Yoruba trader in Lagos, deep brown skin, maybe intricate braids. Then perhaps an Igbo entrepreneur passes by, often a bit stockier in build, looking sharp. And then maybe you see a tall Fulani man, with those often narrower features and lighter brown skin, walking with this sort of calm presence. Travel up north to Maiduguri and you'd meet Kanuri families, often long, lean frames, sharper profiles perhaps. And right in the middle of the central belt, you've got groups like the Tiv and Idoma, showing their own unique blend of traits. It really speaks to that crossroads idea. It truly is a spectrum.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating is that these immediate visual differences, they aren't just skin deep, so to speak. They hint at much deeper historical patterns. They tell a story of human movement, of interaction, stretching over huge amounts of time. Each face, each build, every skin tone, it's like a living record, showing us how different groups moved, mixed, adapted. It's history walking around.
So it's not just seeing different faces, it's like watching history unfold through them.
Wow. Okay, speaking of those visuals, let's break down some specific traits. What about something like eye color? Seems subtle, maybe? What do the sources say? It's actually a great place to start because even these subtle details carry meaning. The vast majority, over 97% of Nigerians, have dark brown eyes. That's pretty typical for populations near the equator worldwide. The high melanin gives crucial protection against intense sunlight. But, and here's where it gets interesting, there are these rare variations. Hazel or amber eyes, for example, they occur in maybe 2–3% of Nigerians, and you see them particularly among the Fulanis up in the north. And this links directly back to historical mixing with North African and Sahelian groups, people from that semi-arid region just south of the Sahara. They brought different genetic markers into the pool.
Right, the Sahelian connection. And then there's albinism, which is really striking. The sources highlight its prevalence.
Yes, that's a really important point. Albinism is significantly more common in Nigeria than, say, in Europe. We're talking roughly 1 in 4,000 to 1 in 5,000 births, which is quite high. And this genetic condition can result in these very striking blue or gray eyes, which really stand out visually.
Yeah, visually striking, but sadly, as the sources note, it often comes with a heavy social stigma in many communities.
Unfortunately, yes. It's a stark reminder of how appearance can deeply impact social life and acceptance.
Okay, moving from eyes to skin tone. You mentioned Nigeria's palette is incredibly diverse, truly, from ebony to bronze. What's the story behind that range?
Well, you can pretty directly link these varying skin tones to both geography and ancestry. It's fascinating. So take the northern groups, the Fulani, Kanuri, Hausa. They often have lighter brown to sort of bronze complexions. And this isn't accidental. It reflects that Sahelian ancestry we mentioned, plus a long history of intermarriage with North African and Arab groups. Their skin adapted to different climates, often drier, less intense sun further north.
Okay, that makes sense.
And in other regions.
Down in the southwest, among the Yoruba, you see a pretty wide range, but medium to dark brown tones are dominant. Then the Igbo in the southeast generally have darker brown complexions, which is a beautiful adaptation to their more forested, humid environments.
Yeah,
And then among the southern minority groups, like the Aija, Ibibio, Efik, especially down in the Delta regions, there you often see these really deep brown to ebony tones, very characteristic of equatorial climates.
And didn't one source mention a study that measured this?
Yes, exactly. A dermatological survey back in 2018 actually measured the melanin index. That's the scientific measure of skin pigment in northern versus southern populations. And, the findings scientifically backed up these historical and environmental adaptations we're talking about.
Wow, science confirming the visual story. Okay, what about hair? The sources mention everything from tightly coiled to wavy textures. How does that fit in?
It fits in very neatly, actually. Tightly coiled hair is overwhelmingly common among the Yoruba, Igbo, and other southern groups. That's a genetic adaptation pretty common across much of equatorial Africa. But then you see looser curls, sometimes even wavy textures, appearing more often among the Fulani and Kanuri again.
Again, that Sahelian and North African influence popping up.
Precisely. It's a recurring theme reflecting those historical movements. Now, hair color is mostly black across the board, though you do sometimes see reddish or coppery tones, particularly in kids in rural areas. That can be genetics, but also influenced by nutrition.
Interesting. And hair isn't just biology, right? The cultural aspect is huge.
Oh, absolutely huge. Hair is deeply cultural in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Yoruba hairstyles, for instance, can be incredibly elaborate braids, real works of art, often carrying meaning. Fulani women traditionally adorn their braids with beads and decorations. Igbo styles often celebrate and highlight thick, natural coils. It's about embracing that natural beauty. And in the north, you also see cultural practices like using henna and, of course, headscarves, which are both practical and carry significant cultural weight.
So much more than just genetics. Okay, let's talk build. Height and physique. Anthropologists noted big differences here, too. What are the trends?
Yeah, there are some really interesting correlations between physique and traditional lifestyles. Take the Fulani again, they tend to be among the tallest groups. Men average around 177 centimeters, that's about 5'9" to 5'10". Women maybe 165 centimeters, 5'5". And they often have these lean builds, which makes sense actually for their traditional pastoralist life, moving across hot, open savannas.
Right, adapted to the lifestyle.
Exactly. Now, compare that to the Yoruba and Igbo. They average a bit shorter men, maybe 172 centimeters. Women around 160 centimeters. And they tend to have stockier or perhaps more muscular builds. Again, likely shaped by centuries of farming and trade in more settled communities.
Okay. Any others that stand out?
The Kanuri up north are also noted for being tall and lean, men averaging about 174 centimeters, again showing those Sahelian links. And then down in the Delta regions, groups there tend to show slightly shorter average heights, men around 168 centimeters. That could be down to unique environmental factors, maybe dietary patterns specific to those coastal and riverine areas.
It's amazing how environment and history shape even height and build. And finally, facial structures. The sources say Nigeria's faces really tell the story. What are some of the patterns there?
They really do. You see quite distinct tendencies. For the Fulani, you often observe narrower faces, sometimes straight or aquiline noses. That's kind of a hook-shaped high cheekbones too. Features sometimes compared to North African populations, which again links directly back to their ancestral movements.
Okay.
The Yoruba, on the other hand, typically show more medium to broad noses, often oval faces, fuller lips. There's quite a bit of variation within the Yoruba, reflecting their diverse history. The Igbo are often noted for strong jawlines, sometimes broader faces, maybe rounder features overall, often complementing their typically darker skin.
Right.
The Kanuri, similar in some ways to the Fulani, tend towards narrower features, longer faces, maybe tall foreheads, reflecting that Sahelian ancestry again. And then finally, those southern groups, Ija, Ibibio, Efik, often characterized by broader noses, full lips, robust cheekbones, traits you commonly see in populations adapted to equatorial climates.
It's so important, though, as the sources stress, that these are just general tendencies. There's huge diversity within each group. Outsiders and maybe even some Nigerians try to pin down a single Nigerian look, but this incredible variety just makes that impossible. It misses the whole point, really.
Absolutely. Trying to stereotype misses the richness.
So let's pull this all together. What does it all mean? To really get why Nigerians look so different, we need to trace that incredibly rich, dynamic history. This isn't just about today. It's thousands of years in the making.
Exactly. And the key question is, how did these distinct traits emerge and become so common in different groups? It's really like layers being added over time. You have deep indigenous roots, then significant external influences coming in over millennia. I mean, humans have been in the area that's now Nigeria for tens of thousands of years. You had Early settled farming societies like the famous Nok culture way back around 1000 BCE, that forms the bedrock.
No culture, right.
Yeah. Then, around the first millennium CE, you have the Great Bantu migrations sweeping across Africa, significantly influencing southern populations in Nigeria, shaving their features, their genetics. Up north, you had expansions from the Sahel region groups like the Fulani and Kanuri, bringing new traits into Nigeria.
And trade played a role, too.
A huge role. The trans-Saharan trade was vital. It brought significant North African and Arab influences, especially into the Hausa Fulani populations in the north. And then, much later, you have the Atlantic trade and colonization. Coastal groups interacted with Europeans, leaving small but still visible genetic traces, especially in port cities where contact was most intense.
And genetics confirms all this complex history, right?
It really does, quite vividly.
Yeah.
Studies show Nigerians primarily carry over 90% West African ancestry. That's the deep indigenous core. But then you see that clear 5–10% North African and Sahelian influence, mainly up north, just as history suggests. And along the coast, yep, minor European admixture shows up, fitting perfectly with the trade and colonial records. It's all written in the genes.
It's fascinating how genes tell the story. But these visible differences, they aren't just biological curiosities, are they? They plug into Nigeria's complex ethnic and political landscape, sometimes causing debate.
Yes, and what's really illuminating, or sometimes troubling, is how perceptions of physical traits intersect so deeply with identity. It can get quite contentious. For instance, some argue that the Fulani's distinct features, narrower faces, maybe lighter skin, give them disproportionate visibility in how the world sees Nigerians, maybe overshadowing the majority look. But then others strongly counter that. They'd say the Igbo and Yoruba, with generally darker skin and maybe more robust builds, represent the real Nigerian look, being more typical of the overall population.
So these aren't just neutral observations.
Not at all. They often tap into deeper historical narratives, even political ones. And there's the colonial legacy, too. During colonial times, lighter skin and sharper, perhaps more European-like features were sometimes explicitly favored by the colonizers. This created this subtle and sometimes not so subtle hierarchy of beauty, and that influence, unfortunately, lingers in Nigerian society today.
How so?
Well, even within Nigeria, fairer skin is sometimes still perceived as more prestigious or desirable, and this sadly fuels a huge, multi-million-dollar skin lightening industry. It's a really troubling legacy of that colonial past, imposing external beauty standards.
Yeah, challenging legacy. And historians, as our sources point out, really emphasize that this modern focus on lighter skin reflects those imposed colonial values, not necessarily authentic, deep-rooted Nigerian cultural values about beauty, which are incredibly diverse.
Exactly. It's important context.
Okay, let's just take a moment, absorb these images again, really appreciate the sheer scope we've been talking about. Picture that tall, slim Fulani herder, maybe lighter-skinned under the Sahelian sun. Then jump to a busy Lagos market, Yoruba traders, intricate braids, medium brown skin, haggling energetically. Then maybe head east to Enugu. Igbo families, maybe darker, ebony skin, strong jawlines gathered together. And finally down to the Niger Delta. Ijaw fishermen, deep brown skin, maybe muscular builds, pulling nets from the river. It's just one nation, but countless faces. It's a real powerful image to hold on to.
It is. And for Nigerians themselves, appearance carries, well, both immense pride and sometimes these points of division. While many absolutely embrace their tall stature or their dark skin or their tightly coiled hair as powerful symbols of African strength and identity, others still grapple with the shadow of those colonial-era beauty ideals that favored lighter skin or different features, in a complex, ongoing cultural conversation.
Yet, despite those tensions, that history, national identity seems incredibly strong. Didn't a survey find something about this?
Yes, a 2020 survey found that over 80% of Nigerians actually see their ethnic and physical diversity not as a weakness, not as something dividing them, but as a profound national asset, something to be celebrated.
That's really positive.
It is. And if you connect this to the bigger scientific picture, researchers have found Nigeria is genuinely one of the most genetically diverse countries in the world. It means that the incredible story of Africa, its ancient migrations, its adaptations, its whole human tapestry is kind of condensed and vividly represented right there in one nation.
Wow. So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for understanding Nigeria? What truly makes its people look so incredibly different? It seems to be this amazing layering effect, deep indigenous diversity to start, then significant Sahelian and North African influences mixed in, and even those subtle marks left by Atlantic trade in colonial times. It's really a testament to a vibrant, incredibly dynamic history that's still shaping the country today.
Absolutely. And maybe, as you, our listener, reflect on this deep dive, here's a thought. Should Nigeria strive for one single face to represent its national look? Or perhaps is its true strength, its unique identity, found in the very fact that no single image can possibly define the richness of its people? Something to mull over as you continue your own deep dives.